in which the author considers the desirability of the Snooper's Charter, which has since passed into law. It certainly didn't dampen free expression, and everything is good now. The government is good, and the author is happy in his life and work, as should you be. November 2015. Theresa May, looking like a hawk that's had a this morning makeover, has launched the new investigatory powers bill. No more drunk googling. All it takes is a misspelled search for bong making, and suddenly you'll be in an orange jumpsuit getting beaten with a pillowcase full of Bibles. Also, pay attention when searching for a child's prom. This law will create lots of new jobs, as the person charged with reading all our communications, who will see more unsolicited erections than the customer services girl at Skype, will regularly feed their screaming faces into a meat grinder. The government insists that only people who have something to hide should worry, as it scraps the Freedom of Information Act. People who run for public office will be afforded privacy, while our private lives will become public property. Having our privacy exposed is particularly crushing for the British, a nation for whom the phrase, "How are you?" really means, please say one word then leave me alone. So why have they just accepted this? Well, for a lot of people, it's the only hope that anyone will ever read their tweets. The PR push for this bill's launch has shown how similar the legislative process has become to the lobbying one. In fact, it's not even lobbying really, as most things that get lobbied for at least have some notional utility. This is more like phishing, asking us to sign up to something that looks helpful, but is actually a data breach. Of course, the government have been reading our social media messages for 15 years. Imagine the celebrations at GCHQ when they see a young couple they used to watch sexting, then wanking on Skype, post their first kid's school uniform pics on Facebook. In its own way, it must be quite touching. The UK government has always stored intelligence, so don't worry. They knew about Assad for years and didn't act. They know about Saudi Arabia's human rights abuses and do nothing. They knew about Hitler and didn't act. What makes you think that a Facebook post you're writing about a riot would... Oh, where did you go? One of the key areas of concern about the bill is the lack of any real judicial check. May can bypass judicial permission if surveillance is deemed urgent, like if Belmarsh's kitchen rota has a gap for someone who can cook halal. Nonetheless, Andy Burnham was quick to offer his support. Many of Labour's front bench seem not to have been caught up in the joyous new Corbyn era, and look like people who have been forced by their work to go on some kind of awareness course. Currently, much of the Labour Party's policy seems to be formulated by encouraging them to just go on camera and say how they feel. He has since backtracked, telling May, "On closer inspection of the wording of the bill, it would seem that it does not deliver the strong safeguard that you appeared to be accepting," which translates as he didn't read the bill very carefully because the government had told him it would have judicial safeguards, and he believed them. Poor Andy. It's like you can't even trust people who are trying to give a raft of authoritarian powers to their secret police anymore. This bill will lead to every person of colour's worst fear, more concerned white people, as whites will soon be the only people who can Google the history of Islamophobia without ending up spending a decade watching children's TV at full volume in a variety of stress positions. Ideological crime will be prioritised, while real crime is ignored, and will adapt. And eventually, when you see a mugging, you'll just start WhatsApping emojis of bombs until you hear sirens. We will acquiesce to the scanning of Facebook posts to fight terrorism, which has killed 56 people in the UK in 10 years, but will still regard the killing of 2 women a week by their partners as a private domestic matter. God knows what this whole shambles says about us all psychologically. May herself seems like the only childhood affection she got was the time a horse mistook her knuckles for a corn cob. At least this bill has allowed me to decode her permanently appalled expression. She looks like she's just seen my internet history. I suppose we need to consider what our internet history is. The legislation seems to view it as a list of actions, but it's not. It's a document that shows what we're thinking about. The government wants to know what we've been thinking about, and what could be more sinister than that? Perhaps we've gotten so involved in the false selves that we project on social media that we've forgotten our real selves, our private selves, and that they're different and are worth saving. We're starting to spend more time online and less being alive. Our faces feel odd when we take our masks off. We live in a culture built on debt, so obviously we are encouraged to have no self-control. Consumer culture needs us to be impulsive, and our political culture fears that we ever develop discipline. A total breakdown of self-control is the perfect backdrop for this bill. We will welcome legislation that will finally replace our fathers. We're like Ted Bundy in his last days, leaving teeth marks on his victims and driving to a state with the death penalty. Our lives are empty and bloated with perversion. We beg for intellectual death. Soon our government will know everything we are thinking, and in that moment we will stop thinking.